without wasting any more time, is Crystal Palace against Liverpool. 12:30 kickoff at Selhurst Park, first game of the weekend. With the winless streak was extended for Oliver Glasner after they were defeated at Goodison Park. While Liverpool beat Wolves 2-1 last time out in the sort of Kanate Aurelien to goal. They were relatively secure, and the same can be said for the midweek game against Bologna. Sort of a short at the back. Bologna had it's a bit of a banana skin fixture. This obviously the early kickoffs are never ideal to bet on, but potential leans, potential angles to go into. The first one being Palace over 20.5 tackles, which is at 1.72. 1.72. I think it's a pretty low expected to be maybe a couple of Palace, even though it was at so aggressively high. He's averaging the most tackles per 90 of any Palace player. Aggressively high. He's averaging the most tackles per 90 of any Palace player. This season, he's made at least 3 tackles in 5 out of 6 league games. So obviously quite an aggressive player. And notably in this matchup or in this game, he draws the matchup of Luis Diaz, who is Liverpool's most dispossessed player. So an ideal matchup. Last time these two faced off, Munoz made 6 tackles in the last head-to-head. He is understandably quite short. He's priced at 1.4 to make 3 tackles, which is best price with 365. So we'd sort of have to be looking at what can we double that with. And I think the sort of logical selection for me would be to go sort of Liverpool fouls in midfield, so targeting McAllister and Gravenberch, just because those two sort of see the majority of involvement on the defensive end. I think they're sort of tasked with getting in a lot of duels, and they are very aggressive in their approach. Gravenberch has made the most fouls for Liverpool under Arne slot, and I think notably he's also played 90 minutes in pretty much every game. So 90 minutes in midfield against the likes of Eze, Nketiah. Not convinced. I'm not really entirely sure he plays in the sort of midfield duo, but it's a good matchup for him regardless. And if we double that with Munoz's tackles, that comes out at 1.8, which is obviously a nice price, backable. Whereas if we look at sort of McAllister, he's coming at 1.66, bit too short. Luis Diaz as well, 1.66, bit too short. Something's wrong, kind of. Okay, 1 second. So can you just confirm, did you hit any of the first game so far? If not, I will redo that. I think I am having a few issues, so I might just restart the stream. Lucky you said actually. Thank you for saying. Seems better now. Okay, which bit did cut off? How long ago did it sort of cut off? Okay, okay, now I did cut off earlier. Okay, perfect, thanks. I think I'm just gonna go ahead with it then. So if you missed the sort of earlier bit, basically I just said the Crystal Palace tackles line looks pretty decent value at over 20.5 at 1.72. Focusing on a player, I think Munoz draws the sort of best matchup against Luis Diaz, who is the most dispossessed player for Liverpool. He is quite short for tackles. He's 1.4 to make 3. So if we're looking to double that, we could look at Gravenberch foul, which has landed in I think 5 out of 7 in all competitions for Liverpool. I'll just double check that. I know he has blanked in his last 2, but I think the sort of matchup against Palace is a good one for him, and I really like his foul priced as a double. Um, Liverpool tackles. Yeah, so he's made a foul in 6 out of 8, blanked in his last two. But as I say, Palace, good matchup, and he has made the most fouls under Arne Slot since he took over. So really like that as a double. The next three angles I have are all unders actually, so a bit of a different approach for this game. But as I say, early kickoff, first game of the weekend, bit of a banana skin. The first is to do with the injury report. So obviously I mentioned Jefferson Lerma debuted as a centre back in the last game against Everton, and with Chris Richards still out, I expect that sort of to persist. So he's currently priced at 1.4 to have a shot, which I think is extremely short for a centre back. So I'm looking at the under. You can actually take him to have under 0.5 shots at 2.75, so close to 2 to 1, which I think is a pretty good price against Liverpool. He did have a shot in the last game against Everton, which was from a corner, but I think in this game against Liverpool, obviously Palace will naturally struggle with progression. I think as we saw against United, they were very easy to control. They really sort of lacked an outlet. I think that will persist against Liverpool. Um, the only way I can really see this happening or sort of see him having a shot is from a set piece or a corner. And Liverpool are a very aerially dominant team. They've got the likes of Van Dijk, Kanate. They're a very physical team, and they don't really give up too many of those set pieces under Arne Slot. So I think a price close to 2 to 1 for a centre back to not have a shot against Liverpool is pretty much instant play. It just looks great value. Last season he actually played as a centre back against Liverpool as well, and he didn't have a shot. So data looks really good for this. I think it's more of just 365 have priced him a bit wrong because of his sort of positional change. They haven't picked up on it, so we can try and take advantage of that value. Next is for Robertson to not make a foul, so under 0.5 fouls, which is at 1.83. He did make a foul in the last game against Bologna, but his fouls aren't really, it was more of like a cynical foul. So those situations don't really occur too often in a game, and he rarely finds himself in a position to sort of stop those kind of attacks. So he's made a foul in 2 out of 6 league games this season, which saw him match up against Kudus in one and Elanga on the other, who are more sort of direct opponents in the sense that they'll look to beat their man, they'll be very aggressive against Robertson. But now he draws the matchup of uh, Munoz. It's hard to really give him a matchup because you've got Nketiah who plays more of an inside forward, and Munoz will hold width. Um, Munoz is not a direct player at all. He's when he gets the ball, he rarely does, but when he does, he sort of looks back, looks for passes, doesn't dribble as much as sort of Kudus or Alanga. So I don't really see Robertson getting in too many duels with him. If we look into sort of left backs against Palace this season, 5 out of 8 have not made a foul. And yeah, I think with Robertson, he's not a very aggressive player in that sense. He's more of like a sort of back off rather than an engage kind of defender when it comes to one-on-one situations. So I think getting him close to evens to not register a foul is pretty good value. Um, in addition, he has sort of had his minutes restricted this season, with Tsimikas often coming off the bench to replace him. We saw that in the last game. He only got 72 minutes against Bologna. So I think if Robertson is to start, again, you'll be looking at sort of 75, 70 minutes range, which is ideal to back the unders. Um, Next is Liverpool shots, and this is an interesting change that we've seen from Arne Slot, which is obviously the change in role for Trent Alexander-Arnold. So under Klopp, he was obviously such a massive component into like a contributing component into the success in the final third, but that hasn't really remained the same under Slot. And I think the perfect way to explain that would be this season he's averaging zero point 0.8 shots per game. Last season he was averaging 1.6 shots per game. So his sort of attacking influence is halved in that respect. And I think that's important. This season he's only had one shot on target, and that came against Wolves on the weekend, which is a pretty timid shot from a free kick. Um, he's actually blanked on shots in 3 out of 8 games, so he hasn't even had a shot in 3 out of 8 games. And as I say, one shot on target this season in 8 games. So he isn't sort of he hasn't been given the same responsibility as he had last season. And because of that, I again like his unders prices for shots on target. He's currently 1.57 to register under 0.5 shots on target with 365. Probably a bit too short to back as a single there. And I think with these kind of bets, when you back unders, you'll have to double it with something from another game, which is a bit of a pain. But I like that as a single, as something to double with something. I think 1.57 for something that's landed in 7 out of 8 games, pretty solid value. And again, I think 365 have been a bit slow to sort of catch up to how Liverpool have changed this season. So leaning towards the unders for the first game, but that doesn't persist for the stream. Next game, Leicester against